Okay, dear ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Afro Communications and Consulting Strategist. Welcome to Afro Political Communications and Consulting Strategist. We are members of Afro Political Consulting and Communication, which is owned by Yasin, myself, Yasin Chiragamisago. I'm the owner and the president of Afro Political Communications and Consulting Strategist. What do we do? As always, we do that we are leaders who are likely to change things, politics, into democratic way. We believe in democracy. The democracy is our Quran, is our Bible. We believe in human rights and liberty and freedom of the people. We believe that people, they should always take a control of their government. The dictatorship is smelling so bad to us. Communism and the socialist system of government would not believe in those ideas or ideologies. We said we are here to make sure that Africa and the whole world should be under democratic system of governance, and not democracy but real pure democracy. As you can see, milk without any water. So today we have come here to talk about Africa. We are going to look at Africa, in particular Southern Sudan, in particular Dinka and Nuer. We are going to look at Africa, in particular South Sudan, in particular the wrangles, the political wrangles, the political struggle, conflict of domination between Dinka and Nuer, the Nuer tribe. Dinka is the largest tribe in Sudan, and Nuer become the second tribe. All these people, they have something very common. They are all Nilotics, very tall guys, warriors. They have almost the same culture, as you can see, between Hutu and Tutsi. Dinka and Nuer, they are very, very much common characters, like Hutu and Tutsi of Rwanda, or you can say Somalian, as you can say Ethiopian and Eritreans. You can see these groups of, and in fact they also belong almost into the same group of people in Africa. So we are going to look at what is exactly Africa. 55 years after independence, Africa still in its same position. You may agree with me or not, but as I said that I'm a political scientist and a historian. I see things in historical perspective and a political point of view. So right now I'm saying that Africa, after independence, after 55 or 50 years, after 50 years of jubilations everywhere in Africa, the continent is still like in the same position. If not that, the continent lags behind in the global community today. You can look at Africa, it still lags behind into the global community. Why is it like this? We are going to look at the conflict in Sudan between the Dinka and the Nuer right now in our program Afro Political Consulting and Communications. Before I rush just into the issue of Dinka and Nuer, or the issue of Riek Machar and Salva Kiir. By the way, the issue of right now the conflict in Sudan, Riek Machar does not only fighting for Nuer people. No, he's fighting for the common cause. He's fighting a universal war to liberate the country into what you call a full independence. Riek Machar does not fight for what you call a tribal war. No, he's fighting to liberate the country out of the yoke of dictatorship after a few years of independence. Riek Machar believes that the independence which Sudan attained, it is not what they have today. Even the wife of former President Garanga or Koro Garanga, Rebecca Nyandenge, she also believed with the other government officials that the independence which they fought for after 50 years, it is not what they have today. Because of the dictator, autocratic and the autocratic rule, or nefarious, we can call Salva Kiir a nefarious and a wicked leader, who after the independence, he became a foxy and a lion. He took over power. He expelled all his comrades who fought for the independence, especially Riek Machar, who designed and fought for the independence when Garanga he was running to join Bashir in the north. So you can see that the Nuer people, they are fighting for equality and collective government of the people. The Dinkas, they are fighting for the politics of domination, to take a power to control other tribes, and it is this problem lies into historical perspective. That's why I want to talk about these people in terms of history and political point of view, so that we can be able to understand what is going on today in South Sudan. Yes, I want to show you something very funny here. It is very funny because it is so funny because of something which is there. Yeah. I want to in my studio today. I want just to show you something very similar here. It is the independence of Ghana. Ghana was the first African country to get independence. But you who view or just who see me in the screen today, you will agree with me why Ghana is still in the same position. Why is it the country like Mauritania, Mauritius, Morocco, Sudan, Egypt? Look at Libya today. South Africa, a little bit. Tanzania, Uganda, Guinea-Conakry, Burkina Faso, Rwanda, Burundi, all of them, these countries, they have something in common. They are in the same position after 50 years of independence. No technology, education is okay. They have a lot of people who are already highly educated, but they don't have employment. Expertise, they are running out of Africa to come in the West to look for the employment. High rate of corruption. The country is stuck, the continent is stuck in what you call stuck into political and economic dilemma after 50 years. But leaders, nationalists, they were jubilating during Independence Day. We, the liberators, and we are going to show the world that African people, black people, when they are given power, they are better than the white man. What have they done so far? And if you look at the white man or the colonial masters, imperialists, when they left Africa, they concentrated on development. So they've done a lot of things in the last 50 years that Africa will do in the next 2,000 years coming. Today, it is a nature, or it is a that is by nature that African countries after independence, post-independence country Africa, they succeeded what you call conflicts. The independence African leaders they were fighting for, it turned into a conflict. They started fighting one another. That's why even to date countries they stuck into what you call conflicts. Why is Africa like this? The politics of tribalism that succeeded the centralized system of government, the colonial masters left. They prepared Africans to lead themselves, but after a few days when they left, African leaders, they used what you call tribalism, nepotism, favoritism in order to keep themselves into power. They become dictators. Arrest, lack of respect of human rights, up to date. It is a norm. Any leader who comes to power, he either become a dictator or a nefarious leader. This is why I decided today to come with the situation in Southern Sudan, because for a political consultant and communication is we are just changing things into a democratic way, into people whereby people they enjoy liberty, as you can see an elephant. Kwame Nkrumah in 1957, when he was getting independence on March 1957, Accra, Ghana, it was the first day of jubilations. He said the following words: at long last the battle has ended. This was Kwame Nkrumah. At long last the battle has ended, and thus Ghana, your beloved country is free forever. Ghana, your beloved country is free forever. And yet again, I want to take the opportunity to thank the people for this country, the youth, the farmers, the women, who have so nobly justified and won the battle of independence of Ghana. These were the words of Kwame Nkrumah. And also said that I want to thank all those people who have just done the best just to support our independence. He said that now is time for hard work to show the white that when you give a black man, he can show you the black power. In fact, Ghana football team is called the Black Power. I think the Black Stars or one of those. But he said something which was so funny. He said that I want to ask you. No, he said that Ghana is free forever, and here I will ask the band to play for Ghana Nation Anthem. That's what he said. And then he added on saying that let us division, tribes not divide us. Let us unite for hard work and show that a black man is really hard-working person. What does Ghana so far has done, which is very much different as the first independent country? It is the same speech which Milton Obote in Uganda gave. It was the same speech Kayibanda in Rwanda gave. It's the same speech apart from South Africa, but it's the same speech in Sudan. Salva Kiir, he gave the same speech. He appreciated the countries which helped South Sudan to liberate, to get independence, and also appreciate the Sudanese people, and he called upon Sudanese people to unite and forget the differences to work for the common cause, development. Few months, just a few months, Sudan, you have seen, or few years, we have seen that Sudan, South Sudan, has fallen into a civil war between what followed after the independence of Sudan was the tension between the Dinka and the Nuer. The president became untouchable. He picked men, the highest trusted men, into his tribe and included them in the government. He chased and expelled other tribes out of the government, SPLM. Salva Kiir, he did another mistake, that we can call it changing the SPLM government, conceptualize the constitution, the SPLM government into a single political party. SPLM, it was like a liberation movement and the army. He used the same system and he changed it into what he called his own political party. You can say that SPLM now, it is not a government military apparatus, but now it is a political party. This has been done by even other leaders, like in Rwanda, the military liberation, like military, we are used as a political party, and it is the same thing in Uganda. The military is the same thing, the political party. So these things have caused a lot of contradictions in Africa and escalated into conflicts. Let us see now tribalism, Dinka and Nuer. One of my professor, he asked me that, Yasin, how do you see the situation in Sudan? Tribalism or oil conflict? I answered my professor using the approach of tribalism more than the oil conflict. Why? If we look at Sudan today, if we analyze Sudan politically, what motivated the conflict in Sudan, it is not oil, because oil is very much in Abyei, and Abyei has its own reasons. They don't feel comfortable to join this government of Salva Kiir at the moment, but they haven't broke any civil war that would have maybe say that maybe they are rivaling just two groups are rival one another because of controlling the state want to control the oil. That's not the much problem. We also know that China is like a cat, or is like a cat waiting to grab its rat oil. Just look out there to see who is what is there, and then grabbing. China is caused also a big problem in Africa. Minerals, conflicts, and political ideology intervening into other countries is still a big problem. So today in Sudan, despite the fact that China is still there, wanted these minerals, oil, but the war is very much focused on the past mistakes and the history define the current situation in Sudan. How is history defined or sparked of the conflict of Sudan today? How does the history of Sudan between Nuer and Dinka sparked of the conflict or motivated the conflict which is there today? Listening, you are going to get this information very clear, and you will be able to advise our leaders to think about the culture and the norms, the tribal beliefs between these two people should be considered much more the interest of each tribe in order to eliminate the conflict and prevent the mass killing of people which we see today in Sudan. I heard Uganda, when Uganda this problem happened, they just sent guns to kill. You don't know anything, President Museveni. You don't know anything, United Nations. We need always to understand the people. What causes the conflict? What is the dimensions of these conflicts? Leaders didn't need to know what is exactly which is caused the conflict in Sudan. They just sent military. They just sent people for hey doing what. United Nations took people to do what? This one can't solve this problem today. It cannot solve the Sudanese problem. Taking people to asylum and resettlement, it won't solve this problem. Sending Ugandan plane to crash Riek Machar, it won't solve this problem. But the problem lies what exactly causing this conflict in terms of history and the post-independence. Then we can solve this problem. That's why we call Afro political consulting and the communications. We advise leaders and we communicate the message. You disseminate the message, we answer the questions. Afro. As I've already said, that it is very awkward situation. It is an awkward situation. It is unbelievable to say that a country like Sudan, a new independent country in Africa today, fell into this tragedy. Would not expect the 500, the 1,000 people to lose their life. They would have been in jubilations, enjoying one another as comrades. But because of the beliefs, the system which is in power, Salva Kiir decided to use a strong hand against these people. That's the situation. Ghana and Nkrumah said during the independence, but also, as I pointed out, that also entails hard work, that New Africa is ready to fight his own battle. New African is ready to fight his own battles and show that after all, the black man is capable of managing his own affairs. This is what Nkrumah said. I pointed out that we are ready. It's now time to show the world that after all, a black man is capable of fighting the battles of his own affairs. We are going to demonstrate to the world, to the other nations, we are prepared to lay the foundation of our own African personality. Independence is meaningless unless it is linked up with other total liberation of Africa. Of course, the independence of Africa was meaningless without the total liberation of what? African countries. Now they are liberated. I am asking Nkrumah. I understand his ghost might be around. What has Africa delivered after the total liberation of Africa? And if we compare this in terms of the Western former imperialists, how should we define the independence of Africa today? What fruits that African is gained from their independence? It is the central question that I want you to think about Africa in terms of perspective, democracy, development, economy, and everything in any country you like. But my focus is on Southern Sudan. You can pick any country, but my focus, I am comparing what Nkrumah said and other nationalists after independence and what is happening today in Africa. What personalities did Nkrumah said? The battle we are fighting, what are these affairs we are solving today? And where are we from? Where are we going as Africans? Listen, Yassini, Chirega Misak at Afro Political Consultant and Communication Strategist. After 66 years in Nkrumah, in 1966, it is unfortunate, Kwame Nkrumah gave this speech in 1957. 1966, after about 4-5 years, Kwame Nkrumah was removed out of power. About 7 years, Kwame Nkrumah was removed out of power. Why did Kwame Nkrumah was removed out of power? Kwame Nkrumah himself, the policies introduced after the imperialists or the colonial masters, it was a sign that Ghana was going into war. One, Kwame Nkrumah used his government only with tribal men, his tribe men. He included the majority of his tribe men into his government. Two, Kwame Nkrumah introduced hard policies. For example, the Detention Act against the workers' union. And we know that immediately after independence, Ghana fell. These workers strike. Workers, they were claiming about their independence, their economic rights, independence and increased pay. Kwame Nkrumah used the brutal massacre of these people, chasing them. Kwame Nkrumah turned against the opposition. He made his CCP party, Conventional People's Party, into as a single party, a single party, the sole part of Ghana. Was this democracy? Is this democracy that the Western left in Africa? No. The question is no. Kwame Nkrumah, his government is one of the corrupt government during at the time. There was a high rate of corruption and human rights abuses. Just within 7 years, a man who was seen as a right-hand man for Africa. Kwame Nkrumah made a mistake. He turned a country in the form of authoritarian and dictatorship, very similar to communist style of governance, who was singing democracy. You can see how contradiction leaders in Africa are and were. Right now, that's how they are, and that's where they were during the Independence Day. Kwame Nkrumah decided to open proxy government relations with China and Russia and forget people who liberated the people who built Africa. If you look at Africa today, things the most important functional institutions, education, industries, roads, infrastructure, these are the things, the most things which you have in Africa today are those things that were left by the colonial masters. But Africans that we have done today spend only 1 year and get destroyed. So this is how Nkrumah destroyed Ghana within 7 years. What next? A coup d'etat. Kwame Nkrumah claimed that he was overthrown by the CIA. But you may ask, you see me in the screen, why did the CIA could remove Kwame Nkrumah out of power? Think about that. Coming back to South Sudan, it is the same status quo, that the government of Salva Kiir did exactly the same thing that Kwame Nkrumah did and other independent leaders did. Right now, Salva Kiir been in power for few years, almost the same as Kwame Nkrumah. He suspended the constitution. He wanted to changing the constitution himself, conceptualize the constitution. He wanted to manage the affairs of the state as a single leader. He fought all his enemies, suspecting to be against his government, opposition leaders. He introduced SPLM as a single solo party, single form of just a single party to run the country in order to strengthen his political position within the government. This is South Sudan. But before that, we're gonna go back again and look at now, as you have seen. I want you now. We have seen the nature of Salva Kiir is a dictator, authoritarian government, has just suspended every person, just every members of the opposition, including the vice president, including the wife of his statesman member, Garanga, and introduced as a single president, single person controlling the constitution. In this way, we can say there is no democracy. He destroyed democracy. He destroyed the principles of self-determination democratically. And you know, where there is communism and authoritarian in Africa today, you are calling your own rivals to kick you out of the power. Who are the Dinka and who are the Nuer? If you look at the situation in Sudan today, one can say that the Baboni rulers, the government of Sudan, South Sudan today, is like the Baboni rulers, or Baboni family, house of the Babonis. These are the people who ruled France with the King Louis XVI. They were overthrown, and then after the fall of Napoleon Bonaparte, Napoleon I, at Elba, when Napoleon was exiled at Elba Island, the French people decided to restore the Bourbon monarchy, thinking that they had learned something from their old mistakes. Unfortunately, things were the same. It was like putting new wine in an old bottle. The Babuni rulers, what they did, or the house of the Babunis, they restored all the aristocratic principles which put them in mistakes. This is the situation that we see in Africa today, in particular now South Sudan. Salva Kiir, he forget that South Sudan, they have fought 50 years of independence. He repeated the same mistakes of his predecessors, or what Bashir did. So where is the independence? Now, people who are fighting today, they are fighting to liberate South Sudan, to get independence. There is no independence for the South Sudan. Now, there is a war that people are fighting to liberate themselves. That's why we can call it a liberation war. We are going to look at the situation in Sudan in three main important things. The attitude the Dinka have against Nuer tribe since 18th century. The conflict between Dinka and Nuer or other tribes started 18th century. You can count and think, where are we going and where are we from as Africans. We are going to look at how the redress for wrongs, conflict mediation, how do they handle conflict issues, the Nuer perspective and the Dinka perspective. That one may help us to understand why this conflict in Sudan can't end today, and why is it other group want to end the war, the conflict, and the other, whereas another tribe seems to dominate the whole status quo. They might have some differences of how they handle issues diplomatically. These things, the whole international community never put them into existence when they are trying to solve the Sudanese problem today. And then we will look at how the aspects of leadership, how each group wants to be governed, and how should we make sure to bring the interest of each group on the same table to solve this problem. The Dinka, by nature, are communist style. They are dictators. They believe in what we call hereditary system, whereby leadership is through succession. That is the Dinka. That's why you see, when Garanga fell into problem, they gave power to what? Power was redirected to Salva Kiir. And then after Salva Kiir, they want another Dinka to come to power. This is what we mean. This is not a phenomenon. It is a phenomenon that has been there centuries, for many years, since 18th century. That's how the Dinka want to lead themselves. Whereas in Nuer, they seem to be democratic people who believe in common sharing everything. They share everything. The Nuer people in their communities, they don't care to eat into different communities, to share food just within their communities. It's the same thing. They believe that power, no one is entitled into power, but power is based on the certain characters of some people within their communities who can be observed, whether they can manage the affairs of the state, and then they give them the control of running or leading other people. But a leader in your community is expected not to be authoritarian, is expected to provide high respect toward his other community members, and it is opposite or same thing. A leader expects compliance, respect from the community, and the community member expect high respect from the leader. The leader does not decide himself. Nuer people in South Sudan, they make a decision collectively, or what you can call collectivization, as it was in China. They decide things in a collective manner, not as authoritarian way in the Dinka community. Dinka, one person decide on behalf of others. and no questioning. So if you look at the situation which is in Sudan today, the politics which is used is a Dinka style, which cannot be fixed in other tribes. And what you expect is the wrangles which you see there today and the conflict. We need to create a leader best who can serve the interest of other tribes. Not authoritarian, but you need to understand how the Nuer people need to be governed. Through elections, they need to look at the characteristics of a leader and then they vote that person. The Dinka, they don't care about what kind of person is going to run the country, as long as is through succession and capable of exerting his influence and power toward this other group of people, which is known as today authoritarian or dictatorship. This is where the problem in southern Sudan lies. And before sending the army any other things, I call upon international leaders to think in terms of the demands and the dimensions of the conflict in southern Sudan, according to the culture, the tribes, perspectives of each group, how they've been leading themselves. That is that is number one. Then we are going to look at several conflicts which have been in southern Sudan, in which you don't know, and you have to learn them today from Afro. Conflict number one. The Dinka, all their lives, since the creation of southern Sudan, they have been considered themselves as the dominant tribe, and they have been considering other tribes as the minority, what they call people outside, collective people outside the sphere, the fishing sphere. This is how the Dinka considered other tribes. The Dinka, they are like Rwanda, Hutu and Tutsi. They have what you call the patron-client contract, or what they call a collective sphere. Collective, yes, what you call the collective, the chief of fishing spear, the fishing spear, the chief of what they call chief of fishing collective spear. The chief of fishing collective spear, it is a concept which portrays the Dinka, or which illustrates the Dinka power. The spear, it is used as a means of power to control others. And then they have what you call people outside the collective spear, fishing spear. People outside the collective fishing spear. Those people who are minorities, who are not nobilities, people who are considered as the fishing spears, are those Dinkas with the high nobility class to rule others. These people, they don't go to war. They always at home. They have those people they consider people outside collective fishing spear. These are the people who are less important in the Dinka community, and they are responsible to send them to war for hunting, to look for food, and then bring to the Dinka what they call, to those whom they call people with collective fishing spears, the nobilities. As you can see, the French Revolution, the nobilities, the Dinka consider themselves as the nobles in the southern Sudan. People who they are there to pray for others, to bring things, to fight for victory. This is how the Dinkas are. They are the nobles, and therefore, if there is any conflict in Sudan, you want to see others, to pray for others just to win, but under their control. That's one. In 1839, Dinka and Nuer attitude, the suspicion sparked off a conflict. 1839, the suspicion between Dinka and against Nuer sparked off a big conflict. how was this suspicion and the attitude? What type of attitude and suspicion did the Dinka possess against the Nuer? One, the event, the Egyptian explorers, in trying to find the source of White Nile, they traveled from Egypt, Upper Nile, because you know that Sudan was under the control of Egypt before the arrival of colonial masters. Egypt colonized Sudan, and in the search for the source of White Nile, Egyptian masters just sailed from the north of Nile, trying to come to find the source of White Nile. Besides that, the Dinka, they are known as interpreters and the soldiers or securities, bodyguards of Egyptian colonial masters. They were the bodyguards and the interpreters of the Egyptians during the time Sudan was under the Egyptian control. So the Dinka used this opportunity, because they were interpreting for the Egyptians, to tormenting Nuer, as portraying Nuer tribe as an enemy of their masters, the Egyptians. As I have already told you, that the Egyptians on their expedition to find the source of White Nile, they were welcomed. They reached into Nuer community. They were welcomed by Nuer in great jubilations and happinesses. Many Nuer villages, they flocked on the White Nile Valley to welcome their masters, Egyptians. Most of the Nuer, they went with the gifts. They took cows. They slaughtered cow for their masters, the Egyptians. Egyptians were so excited to receive such gifts from Nuer community. However, because of the suspicion the Dinka had against Nuer, and the Dinka were the interpreters of the Egyptian, they told the Egyptian that the act of slaughtering and sacrificing a cow in Nuer community, it means that they are preparing a war and conflict against the Egyptians. And the second, they said that the act of slaughtering a cow, it means that Nuer, they were preparing to fight against the Egyptians in their territories. Many Nuer did not welcome this. The following day, many Nueris, the Nuer tribe, they went with the gifts. They welcomed the Egyptian again. They flocked to see them, to greet them. They took beans, they took tobacco, and then give these gifts to Egyptians. Egyptians, they were so worried about the good heart the Nuer people had. But because the Dinka were the translators of the Nuer language to the Arabs, the Egyptians, they interpreted the act of tobacco. The Nuer tribe gave tobacco to Dinkas. And I mean, the Nuer give tobacco as a gift and beans to Egyptians. But this act, it was interpreted by the Dinka to their masters, Dinka soldiers to the Egyptian masters, as poison. The Dinka told the Egyptian their masters that in Nuer, tobacco means poison. They are planning to give you poison to kill you. What followed during at this event? Egyptian, they opened the fire and they killed many Nuer herdsmen. A lot of them lost their lives, and this was the time when the Nuer king, the Nuer prophet Ngudeng, was expelled out of his community, and the beginning of Nuer and the Dinka rivals. The Dinka developed this attitude and negative just attitudes against the Nuer, whom they considered as their biggest enemy, number one, in the territory of what you call today Southern Sudan. So you can see the attitude between the Dinka had against Nuer, and how they betrayed them and tormenting them in the eyes of the colonial masters, by then the Egyptians. Afro-political consultant and communicationist, we are presenting the original cause of the conflict today in Southern Sudan. I want you to understand why the Dinka, they don't like the Nuers, and why the power in Sudan today controlled by the Nuer. Another tribal suspicion or attitude, negative attitude, Dinka against the Nuer. It was 1899. Dinka against the Nuer. Dinka leaders contacted the new government with fabricated stories. I repeat this. The Dinka were the security, bodyguard and the soldiers of the Egyptian who were controlling Sudan in 1899 by then. Apart from the first event I've explained, the government, the Egyptian government, as it was controlling Sudan, Dinka approached Egyptians with fabricated stories. They fabricated stories tormenting the Nueris in front of the Egyptians. What was this event? In 1899, Dinka soldiers who lied, they lied against Nuer, and this lie became accepted by the Egyptian masters. The allegations, the Dinka against the Nuer, forced the government of the Upper Nile, what we call the Upper Nile, to confront Prophet Ngudenge. The Sudanese, they know, the Nuer, they know very much Prophet Ngudenge. He is very common in the Southern Sudan. Prophet Ngudeng, he was lied. The Dinka lied. They tormented him. They fabricated negative stories against him to their masters, the Egyptians. The Egyptians came to believe this story because they considered Dinka as their trusted and translators. They forced him out of the land, what was Nuer, and invaded the rural Nuer tribesmen. Ngudenge claimed that when Ngudenge was leaving the Nuer land after his expulsion by the Egyptians, he said that there will be war in the lands of Nuer, Dinka, and other parts of Southern Sudan, which will affect the younger generations. Many of these younger generations will be the same age. He said that they will see a lot of horrible things, people dying. The Dinka, in collaboration with the government, banned all the Nuer villages. 1899, the Dinka banned all the Nuer villages after, and they forced the Prophet Ngudeng to leave this area. They took all their properties, land, animals, and the soldiers, the Dinka soldiers, they forced Ngudeng to leave. Most of the Nuer refused to give up, and they promised to fight until the last person. Some Dinka informant confirmed that later that Nuer gave up fighting because they felt sorry to the Ngoko Dinka and the Nuereweng, the Sabu Dinka tribes who were their friends. So that was the end of that conflict. Ngudenge left, and the Dinka used the Egyptians. They took over the Nuer land. Phase 3, Dinka fighting the Dinka fighting Nuer. It was 1893. During that period, after both tribes later on, though turned, I'll not talk much about the British colonialism, but I wanted to show you the main part of the misunderstanding between these two people and why they brought back this conflict after the independence. They fought together the independence, but they put the independence aside, and now they bring back all the conflicts, what you call the unsolved conflicts. Phase 3, Dinka against Nuer, tribal war, 1883, 1887. Many people now, I believe that you know this conflict. There was a jubilation about the joint forces of the SPLM. They formed a strong organization to fight a single-handed war against the government of the Northern Arabs, the Khartoum government. It was a war of jubilation. It was a movement of jubilations between Dinka and the Nuer, formed a unified government. They forget the past to fight a common cause to liberate themselves, as it was seen recently. However, SPLM turned into what you call sharp direction. When they formed the SPLM, the Dinka, Garanga, he filled on all his organization by Dinka men, those whom he called fishing spearmen, the nobles, and he isolated the other tribes like the Nuer, which were under mostly Riek Machar. This group, it was shut down. They were seen as people of less importance within Sudanese SPLM, Sudanese Liberation Movement. What happened? It was Garanga himself. He didn't want independence of Sudan, South Sudan. That was another problem. 1883-87, Garanga wanted the unified Sudan as a single country. The strategy of the war and the independence, the liberation of South Sudan, sparked off the division between Dinka and Nuer. Nuer believe into self-determination. Salva kiir, he said that we should have a self-government, whereas Garanga, he was just backbiting them, going to the north and collaborating with the Bashir to keep Sudan as a single state. And I am very sure that this problem sparked off the separation between SPLM and the Nasil, SPLM Nasil, that was created by Riek Machar and his friend. So now we can see who held the independence of Sudan, who fought it, Nuer or Dinka. What was the Nuer fight for? Just what are they fighting for? They fight for the common cause, democracy for their own people. And I've already shown you that it is democracy, it is in the blood of the Nuer people. They believe into collective leadership, collective decision making, rather than authoritarian and hereditary system of government the Dinka believe in. Okay, another Nuer Dinka tribal war, 1991, Riek Machar and Lam Kol. The two leaders maybe yes, I forgot to talk about the conflict of Anyanya. The misunderstanding about independence between Garanga and the other group like Riek Machar, it is part of what we call Anyanya War, Anyanya 1 and Anyanya 2. There was a man called Guy Yuti Yanga, Anyanya 1, Anyanya 2, with the defense of Dinka dynasty and their independence. So the Dinka, you can see that they believe domination of others, and they wanted a unified government between the north and the south. But the Nuer, they wanted a separation of power, whereby they can have their own leader as a democratic government, which you see today, though Salva Kiir turned into authoritarian regime. The strategy pushed Dinka and Nuer into another conflict. Nuer demanded full independence, as I have already said. Garanga and the Dinkas, they were fighting for proxy Arab government, a single government, and they didn't want to show the Nuer until Salva Kiir, he declared Riek Machar declared self-government now and liberating the people of Southern Sudan. Listeners and viewers, you are at Afro Political Consulting and Communication is Yassini presenting the conflict in Sudan and where African is from, where are we, and where standing today after 50 years of independence. In Sudan particularly, we are looking the conflict between the Dinka and the Nuer. Is it a tribal or the war of oil? Another Nuer, we have what we call SPLM 1990, SPLA 1991, Riek Machar and Lam Kol. The two leaders issued warrant